Hello, Namaste, and happy Teachers' Day to all in India, at least 𝗲𝗬𝗟. So, happy and pranam to all the teachers of the world. And welcome back to my channel, Financial Market Analysis Twist by 𝗦𝗛𝗔𝗮. And in today's video, I would just like to take you to the futuristic ride. So, I would like to explain what are the events which can be expected from now onwards in the next year also, and how it is going to impact the overall economy and the stock market. Understand that whatever the market, particularly in India, the market is, on the boom, right? So as if, everything has become hunky-dory and we are going to ride the best wave of our time in terms of the earnings and in terms of the growth. So let me warn you here that even though relatively basis, because we are looking at the relative, not the absolute basis, on the relative basis to the world and the other major economies, India would do better and India would be in the positive territory of the growth. But if you look at not only in terms of the relative, but in terms of the other inflationary and other economic data, then we will also be in a bit of a problem. I mean, I would not say that it is a great danger, but yes, India will also not be immune from the world problems, and it will impact, and overall then it can impact the economic scenario of India and the stock market. So right now, what we see in the market, particularly the context of the Indian Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange and all the stock in India, people are trying to, the investors are trying to discount that FY24 earnings. Okay, already 1.5 years earnings after, as if, FY23 has finished. Even we are in the current year, the second half of the calendar year 2022, but already we are talking about FY24 earnings will be great, and it's already into the market, it's already priced into the index and everything. All the stocks are whatever the discount has to be taken, giving all the futuristic events, it are already discounted into the price. But that is a fallacy, which I believe it's a fallacy, and I don't agree with that view that we are not yet, we have just completed our barely half of this FY23, financial year 23 or calendar year 2022, and we are in that last phase. But as you know, the world is so much changing very fast, and some events are happening very fast. Like in February, nobody had predicted in the first week that the war or the conflict on a major scale will start between Ukraine and Russia, right? In the same way, in 2021 in February or March, 2020 February, March, nobody had predicted that world will come to a standstill, first time in the history, because of some kind of a virus, that everything will be closed. Full world at a time, for a long time, will be closed. In the same way, I believe that still we are not yet, that uncertainty, it continues, and we should not be thinking that everything is discounted, because the next step, what is going to happen is that as we are entering into the winter in Europe and in America, in the northern part of the world, we are entering into the winter or autumn and then winter. We are going to see that real geopolitical war happening, not only between Russia, Ukraine, but it is between the Russia and the Western world, so Europe and USA. So as you know that its gas is switched off by Russia, and the name of that whatever they say, that it's maintenance, under maintenance, and we are going to see a massive blow as far as the energy is concerned, the pricing. And when they are talking about the USA and the Europe about price capping, this is a stupid kind of a idea, because as you know, in the market, everything is decided by the market. So it's decided by the political situation as well as the supply demand and so many other variables are there. But you can't, artificially control the price. That can be, there is always a way where the market will find is the price equilibrium variable. So that's why we call it market knows better than anybody. So nobody is above the market. In the same way, in life, when we talk about this, in the same way, this kind of a pricing also, market will find its level for even for oil and gas, and depending on the supply demand issues, other constraint, shipping constraint, freight, logistics, virus, whatever, these are all taken into consideration as part of the restrictions on the supply, and the demand will also adjust according to that. So that way you find that economics, the principle of economic works for anything and everything. So the market will also work according to that, and the price will work according to that. So this is artificially, if you will try to do, what it will happen is that you will shut off because Russia has clearly told that we are not going to sell anybody who will talk about the price cap on oil. So the 10% of the world oil immediately, suppose, shuts off from the market, which is not available, and 60% of the gas to Europe is by Russia only. So you can imagine the kind of a catastrophical situation we can get into as we enter into the winter if this happens. This is total chaos and stupidity if somebody even talks about, and it's a stupidity if somebody listens and tries to implement. So because what will happen is that prices will just shoot off. This because COVID is not permanent, so even after 15 days everything will be like in China. They have kept on closing, but definitely it will open up, and suddenly that roaring of this demand and everything, and the price you can zoom off to even $150. Who knows, if they are talking about the price cap and Russia stops selling. Iran will come. So the second argument is that we are very, in a fast way, we are trying to approve the Iranian oil and removing sanctions from the Iran, lifting of sanctions. So this is the second fast event which may happen, but it may not be implemented immediately, because what will happen is that, first of all, with all these years of sanctions on Iran and cut off from the world market in the investment, so there has not been much investment into the oil and gas sector in Iran in last few years, and that is why the ramping up of the capacity or the pumping or even the supply, all this logistics issue is not going to be available from the day one. It will take at least a year even after this lifting of sanctions, and then investors start coming into Iran and setting up and start investing, and then the technology is coming, and then the ramping up of the production happens. It's a long process. So first of all, that immediately what you call about the 2.5 million barrels of oil is not going to come on the market. That is first point. Hardly you will see around 1 million barrel, but 1 million barrel will not make any difference, because the same time OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia and UAE, they are not very happy if this Iran is immediately lifted, sanctions are lifted from Iran. So what it will there today is the OPEC plus, that meeting is there. Then they are talking already about, because this price in recent time, because of this Chinese lockdown and other European economies problems and recession, USA entering into recession, depending on, because of all these reasons, we are seeing that oil has corrected recently in last 1-2 weeks. So because of that also, the OPEC plus today's meeting, I am expecting some kind of, they will say that we will be dynamic in the sense that we will not immediately start increasing the production as was. They were talking about that from September to that December end, they will slowly increase the production by 4.5 million barrels per day. Okay, from what the current level of production. But that can be changed depending on the situation. That is what the OPEC plus, I think, led by Saudi and UAE will decide. this is what is going to happen, that if the prices comes down very significantly, they will not allow it to happen, and then they will reduce that so-called increase of pumping, production, which they had announced earlier. And also because if the Iran comes, then definitely they will also not want to increase the production. So these are the lot of multi-factors, it's a multi-variable. It's not very simple equation of A is equal to B plus C. It's A is equal to alpha B plus beta. So that alpha is a big, and which alpha depends on itself, depends on so many other multiple variables, that equation becomes a very complex quadratic equation, and it is not so simple algebraic equation it becomes that. So what I am trying to say is that, and then the third in this scenario is the third unknown factor is Israel. So how Israel will react into this kind of a situation, which nobody knows if the sanctions are lifted from Iran. So that is where you will see Israel, some reaction also will come, and it will not be a very quiet or the silent reaction. It can lead into some kind of another geopolitical big issue, disruption in way of conflict. If that happens, then Iran oil also will not come whatever promised, and world will plunge into another area of confrontation. So that I believe it's bound to happen. So that is the next event. If the sanctions in Iran is lifted, you will see that in some few months time or very soon, Israel will also do something against that. And then next, when we get into the next year, I think that what China has done this exercise along the Taiwan Strait, you will see some kind of action. That's what I believe, that this was just but if USA and the Western that continues to show some kind of protest against some kind of action by standing up with the Taiwan and sending arms to Taiwan, then you will see that there may be chances of conflict between Taiwan and China also can rise suddenly and unexpectedly, and in a big major conflict it can. In the same way, what we see that the China's aggression and the bulliness can happen with India also, because as we move into this next year in 2023, where after that in 2024, early 2024 part, you will see a general election in India, and definitely so before that China will also try to do some kind of a nonsensical action along the line of actual control with India. They share a huge boundary, right? So that is where the chances of those kind of a localized or regional conflict also between China and India can also happen. And I am sure that even if this doesn't happen in next in immediate term, but in next future, in 4-5 years time, you will definitely see a major conflict between India and China breaking out, because a pestering blister, that line of actual control is there, and it will be settled by war, whether one likes it or not, and whether one talks about peace, and it's a thing. But in practically, this is my view, is that in next 4 to 5 years you will see a major conflict happening between India and China. But that is anyway it's far off. But these are the events which are going to lead to another major crisis continuing. As we enter into what I am trying to say is that as we enter into 2023, or so-called FY 2024, financial year 2024 in India we call it, try to discount it, which we are not taking into major action, which are not taking into consideration the effects of all this on the oil, gas, energy, conventional energy prices. It will continue to remain high and even more higher, and that will be huge inflationary pressure across the world, and which even will result into many more Sri Lanka happening, many more small countries. You will see that if this is how it will pan out, then in next year you will see few more Sri Lankas out of Asia or African countries or the Latin American countries, and even from European countries also you may see, say Portugal or Italy or Greece kind of countries which were already sick men of Europe. They were already in trouble. Turkey was in trouble economically, disastrous. They will get into this kind of a bankruptcy kind of a scenario. So you will see many more countries getting into this, and world economy actually continue to suffer heavily even next year, which I believe this is how it is going to pan out. So I just wanted to share my thoughts regarding the near future for this FY24, that how these things are going to pan out. And that way I would advise that, still we are not out of the woods. Okay, somebody can look into the bottom up approach, in the stock specific approach where valuations are right, and you can see those kind of only. But if you look at the overall stock market, we are going to see correction, and we are not going to be out of the woods, because the energy prices are going to even high or higher next year going onwards also, and food inflation will also increase because of all this kind of a multi-theater war in multi-theaters. Multi-theater means in various different geographical locations of the world, the war kind of scenarios are there, and which will keep all this inflation high and bankruptcy level also high. That's it from my side, and this is once again, we'll see you next week with some more idea, unique concept, unique idea about the future and how the market. Till that time, ciao from Neeraj from Moscow, and love you all. See you next week.